Welcome to Confessions of a Parent Coach. I'm parent coach, mother of four, and your host, Ann Kaplan. This is the podcast where you will learn that even for parenting experts like me, there is no such thing as a perfect parent, and that fabulous behavior and amazing relationships are right on the other side of that realization. If you're working your butt off to do right by your kid, honor yourself, and go beyond the BS around you, you are my person, and this podcast is for you. Full disclosure, I'm a sometimes potty talker, and we deal with the challenge of raising kids here. This podcast is for grown-ups, so stick your earbuds in and let's do this. Hello, and welcome into another episode of the podcast, everybody. I'm so excited to be here with you again this week. And if you're watching the video, you can tell that I'm in another new setting. So all this month I've been talking about the retreat. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to record the episodes to the podcast in different areas around where we hold the retreat. So this is the Oak Room that I'm in right now. I'm going to actually lift my camera up so you can see behind me. It's a gorgeous bedroom with a king size bed, beautiful closet. You can't tell because I'm sitting in it, but there's a nice little desk in here. And in order for lighting to work, I had to close the windows, but it's surrounded by trees on all sides, two giant windows that open up, and it feels like you're inside a treehouse when you're in this room. It's one of my favorites. And what I'm here to talk about today for today's podcast episode is, I'm not going to surprise you, even before I explain what it is. If I had to just say, if you've listened to the podcast before, what do you suppose I'm probably going to talk about on the podcast? One answer might be the Enneagram, but if it couldn't be the Enneagram, what would it be? And it's not going to surprise you at all to hear me say deep work. And what I specifically want to talk about when it comes to deep work today is this sort of the juxtaposition of like an eyes on the prize approach versus a kind of slow and meandering approach to our work. I think when I was like sort of outlining the content for today's episode, what I kind of titled it was, besides I have two titles, working titles that I was working with. One was just Meet Bob, and you'll see why. I'm going to tell you a story about a guy named Bob later on in this episode. So that was one topic or title that I was throwing around in my mind. But the other one was basically this eyes on the prize blows by the real treasure. And so if you know me, you know that I speak in idioms and expressions so often. And today I'm going to be mixing in and sprinkling on top so many idioms, it's going to make your head spin. One of my besties, I have a really good friend named Sasha, who I don't know why, but she really is like keyed in on the fact that I speak in idioms a lot. And every time I'm talking to her, we can be talking about the most banal thing. And if I don't even notice that I'm using an idiom or something, and she'll be like, oh, that's three. I realized in the last like year or two, she counts how many idioms I use in any given conversation that we have, which is so silly. But so now I'm like self-conscious about it. But I realized when I was writing today, even I could tell when I was writing up the notes for today's episode that it is chock full of idioms and expressions and metaphors and analogies. So if you love that, you're going to love it. If you don't love it, ooh, buckle up, everybody. So let's dive into this idea about this kind of like I said, juxtaposition between, having that eyes on the prize. You're like really laser focused on getting from point A to point B and really goal oriented in your work versus being a little bit more meandering, go with the flow, kind of following the little twisty turny journey. And I think overall, how I'm going to demonstrate that is a story about one of my clients, Bob, and sort of what he came to me to explore and how we started to get there. And you're going to see, oh, wow, okay, so it's the layer, the layer, the layer, the layer. And here is this kind of nugget in the beginning or in the middle, that like that heart of the matter kind of thing. There you go. I think I've already used like half a dozen idioms just in the last minute. So this really is just to be an illustration of how following our sort of deeper treasure map gets you like a way more valuable prize, and it still will achieve that A to B um accomplishment. It gets you to your short-term goal as well. And I think as this unfolds, you're also going to see why the retreat is such a no-brainer to for so many people, especially once they've come on it. They almost always come back. Because once you start to understand that we're really doing in our work together is looking for that deeper treasure map and then trying to follow that deeper treasure map, um, that quick fix kind of stuff, it just doesn't really land anymore. And then it starts to also seem like a no-brainer that, kind of slowing down and following that, and really being able to really read the map, which takes time and patience and effort and all of that stuff. Um, that slowing down is so valuable because it really allows you to find those tiny little trailheads that you would have otherwise blown by. So, when I'm talking about things in that context, well, gosh, a retreat makes so much sense. Like I said, it's a little bit of a no-brainer because it's literally 5 days to slow down and notice those trailheads with zero rush, no need to get to the outcome right away, and to really experience that sort of deep discovery in an immersive and spacious way that we can't do it in any other way. And so I'm going to tell you the story about Bob. It might be easy for you to draw the conclusion from it, like, well, hey, Bob, this journey that you're talking about in this session that you're discussing, and that was a coaching session. It wasn't at the retreat. But what you don't know is that Bob has done retreats with me. So he is actually a very good illustration of deep, slow work, which is beautiful. So all of that, setting the stage, giving you the exposition for today. So now let's dive in. So speaking of that whole eyes on the prize thing, that is definitely what I used to think of as my superpower. And now I'm starting to realize maybe not so much. I used to be so eyes on the prize. I'm an Enneagram type 1. So can be very decisive. I can look at a situation and immediately just know what's right. And it's basically a done deal, even if, the thing that's actually going to happen that I've just made my decision about isn't for years in the future. So a great example of this is when we decided that we were going to move to Spain. We actually decided we were going to move to Spain 2 years before we did it because my husband felt like he needed this time to kind of like get his ducks in a row for work before we left the country. And so, and I was calling my friend Elena, who lives in Spain, and saying, okay, well, we're coming to Spain. We're going to come to live in Spain for a year. And she's like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. And I was like, yep, it's going to happen. This was in like 2015. I was like, it's going to happen. Right at the end of the summer of 2017, we're going to be there. And she laughed out loud. And I was like, what's so funny? And she goes, I can't tell if I'm laughing at the fact that you're telling me this 2 years in advance or the fact that I know that it's still definitely going to happen. Like I can literally put on my calendar August 2017 and you will be here like right on time. Because she already knew, even whatever, that was like 7 years ago. She already knew that once I decided, it was a done deal and nothing would get in my way. So, it doesn't matter if new information comes in or new opportunities arise or complications arise or whatever. It does not matter. Once I made that decision, it is a done deal. I lock in on it. I put my blinders on and I just relentlessly move toward my destination. And I used to really love that about myself. And to be fully honest, this is confession time. I miss it sometimes about myself because the more that I'm doing my work, the less certain I am, the more open I am to all different ways of thinking. It makes it a lot harder to just be like, yep, we're doing that. See you 2 years from now. So, so Spain was a really great example of that. Another place where I used to be a lot more like that was in my coaching. The very beginning of every coaching session, if you're a client of mine, this is not going to be a surprise. You hear this every time we meet. What specifically do you want to accomplish today? Say that all the time. And I still do. And my clients will tell me. And I used to be so locked in on the answer to that question that would just be like, all right, let's figure it out. Bing, bang, boom. Session could be over in 15 minutes. But thank goodness I have evolved in my coaching, because eyes on the prize is not a great approach in coaching. And I can tell you that that's actually not what a lot of coaching organizations would teach you. Our job as coaches is to really make sure that we are locked in on that goal. This is what differentiates coaching from therapy. It's what we're trying to do in a coaching session is forward the action of the client. For sure. And I don't disagree with that, but to me, I think that's not the whole story. So, you know, taking the blinders off means noticing and following distractions, quote unquote, sometimes. But that's what I've learned has got my clients huge results. And so it's what I've chosen to incorporate into my practice. And it's what differentiates me. I know this from a lot of other coaches. So, maybe today is actually a double confession, because on one hand, I'm confessing to you that I, you know, have this tendency to um, get too much with the blinders on and get too, singular minded when it comes to my own personal life and all those things. But that secondary confession is like, I've actually sort of, um, maybe in a way gone a little bit rogue from the traditional coaching paradigm. And believe you me, that is a big confession for me. when I'm part of a when I'm part of an organization or institution, it's hard for me to go astray. But I suppose I have. I didn't even realize I was going to confess that today, but I did. So there you go. You have this idea about this eyes on the prize. Now let's talk about Bob. So I have this client. We're going to say his name is Bob. It isn't actually Bob, but we're just going to say it's Bob. And Bob came to me because he really wasn't sure if he was in the right relationship or not. He was really considering, what to do in his relationship. So he came to me to decide stay or go. And this story is going to tell you what he actually wound up discovering through our work together. So he's been with his partner for many years. And now he's wondering if he wants to stay or go, like I said, but he doesn't want to break up with his partner for the wrong reasons. He doesn't want to break up because he's just all up in his head, or because he can't handle his partner the way he is, or maybe he himself, Bob, is wounded in this way that makes him unable to be happy in any relationship, period. And he doesn't want to break up for the wrong reasons. So this is a real life situation that has come to a head in his life, which is his partnership. And we could totally just do that decision matrix about pros and cons. Almost every coaching modality teaches you some sort of like decision-making matrix where you sort of evaluate all these different aspects and come up with this almost like a mathematical, therefore you should break up, or therefore you should stay together. We could easily do that and look at the facts and figures. I could even make a list of observations I've made about comments that he's made in sessions, reactions he's had in sessions, that is like evidence about how he feels about his relationship. And we could probably reach a decision about whether Bob should stay or go in this relationship in like a session or two. But this would be a really boring podcast if I was like, and so that's what we did, the end. No, that's not how I work. Obviously, I'm not surprising anybody by saying that. So what actually happened was he came to this, even our very first session, saying, and when I say first session, I mean first session after having been, in my world and, like I said, done retreats and things like that. When he came to me specifically for this go around of coaching, he had an inkling already from a few conversations with his partner that the real heart of the matter in this situation for him has to do with how he deals with his emotions. And because he knew about the type of work I do, because like I said, that he wasn't coming in a blank slate, he came to me saying he wanted to learn more about that. He wanted to figure so he knew that was like where he wanted to go. And that's how he wanted to figure out this decision, was to learn more about his emotions, learn about processing emotions, and in doing that work, arrive at a decision about this relationship. And what transpired after that has been fascinating. I have like shared it in like peer circles. I've like gotten peer review on it. I've workshopped it with people. Like it was fascinating. I felt so privileged to be witness to and have a window into his process and the way that his mind works and the way that his whole like world is constructed. It was fascinating to me. So we had this amazing series of sessions where we did a little bit of internal family systems, like parts work. And, he was new to that and a little unsure. So we just did a little dipping our toe in the water of IFS, and he got to explore his feelings and how they show up in his body and stuff. And it got a little emotional, which is totally normal, but nothing crazy. And, whenever we do an IFS session, we recap afterwards and just say, how was that for you? What did you notice? Any takeaways from that experience? And the first time we did one of these IFS sessions, he said, well, it's really interesting because I never thought of that as a part of me because it's just an emotion. So it comes from the outside. And I was like, whoa, stop everything. Your emotions come from the outside. Do not pass go. We need to explore this. And this is what I mean when I say we have these trailheads that we could completely blow by if we have that eyes on the prize. Like, hey, we're supposed to be talking about your partner here, not how you process emotions. Or even when he said, I want to come to you and learn about how to process emotions, I still easily could have been like, okay, this isn't about processing emotions at all. So let's, keep our eyes on the prize here. Should you break up with your partner? Here are the steps to processing emotions. But no, we stopped at that trailhead to explore it. And I said, wait a second, you believe that emotions come from the outside? And he said, yeah, that's how I experience it. And I was just like, okay, now we found the real treasure map. This is the deeper thing. And everything is going to come from this. And so this just unfolded this fascinating exploration where we really learned that this person conceives of everything he experiences and feels as not coming from him, but from the outside. It's all just happening to him. His feelings, his behaviors, the way other people interact with him, the circumstances he finds himself in, they all just happen to him. Um, you know, and obviously this isn't like he's the only person on the planet who feels this way. And you know what? I actually think a lot of people feel this way and they don't realize they feel this way. What was really unique and special about this conversation was how self-aware he was, while at the same time, as you're going to see, being totally disconnected from himself. It was like, wow, this is like such a gift. And so he was kind of expressing, I was kind of asking him different questions, and basically the worldview that I started to understand that he was sharing was basically, the questions that we ask ourselves all of the time. Why am I the way I am? Why do I feel the way that I do? Why do I act the way that I do? The answers to all of those questions for him were, life made me, basically. I have no choice. And so then we started having some thought experiments, because as a coach, I'm thinking, okay, well, there's no way that this isn't affecting your relationship, not just with your partner, but with the whole universe. And if we want to get to the bottom of, is this the right person for you? What do you want to do about it? If he's not the right person for you, what do you want to do instead, et cetera, et cetera. We really need to unpack this, because being so detached and disconnected from your own internal processes is muddying the water for you. It makes perfect sense that you're like not sure. And so so we did some fun thought experiments, which I'm not going to go into all the details about here, but for example, I asked him something about like, okay, so just imagine if two people were born in the same day, They were raised exactly the same way. They had the exact same life, the exact same experiences. Are they the same person? Expecting him to say, well, no, of course not. They're two different people. But he didn't. He said, yes. And yeah, they're two different people. And I said, okay, so if nothing differentiates them, will both of them be wearing a red t-shirt today? Because he was wearing a red shirt in our session. And he said, okay, well, maybe they wouldn't both be wearing the same shirt. And I said, okay, well, what would be the thing that would make him choose his shirt differently than you choose your shirt? If it was the same person that you went through this same life, that was this person. And, it was a head scratcher for him, but it still was kind of like, no matter how we looked at it, he was unable to say, oh, I guess I do have something intrinsic and internal inside of me that is like my meanness. And so this is why I chose that I needed to have a name for this client when I was telling this story, because at one point in the session, I was like, okay, is there anything Bob about you? Like, is there some unique Bobness that nobody else has? And you were just Bob from the day you were born. And I just kept using his name so much that I was like, I need to have a name to be able to tell this story properly. Well, Bob was like, no, he really couldn't get traction around this idea. Even when he was coming up against some of these dead ends where his logic was breaking down. And even though he could see that, feeling like he had no choice or control in his life was not helping in his relationship, it was not helping him get clarity on whether he wanted to stay or go in the relationship. It was just like the treasure map had us kind of going in circles. But then we started talking about nature and nurture. Okay, right? So we've all heard of the nature nurture debate, and we know that it's not actually a debate at all, because the answer is both. Nature and nurture go into shaping us. But when I brought that up to Bob, he really said, nature is not a factor in who you are, only nurture. And even when I got really, direct with him, I was like, so nature doesn't exist, only nurture exists. And he was like, yeah, because you are your personality, and your personality comes from outside of you. So you are nurture. Nature's not a part of it. And I was like, okay, we're back on track with this treasure map, because we're getting somewhere now. And I said, okay, well, just coaching hat off here, talking as a consultant. There's two ideas that you're exploring here, and I think both of them, unfortunately, are misunderstood. The first is this idea that you are your personality, and the second is that your personality comes from outside of you. And just putting that second one to the side for now and looking at this idea that you are your personality, that's really not 100% true. And the truth is that the personality is a psychological construction. You manufacture your personality. It's a thing that you make over the course of your life in order to cope with challenges. Like, for example, you learn to be a people pleaser to cope with the challenge of other people's displeasure, for example. And he was totally bought into that. So, so if the personality is something that you manufacture, what are you before you manufacture a personality? Or another way to ask that, a way that maybe like Hindus and Buddhists would ask this question, is who is manufacturing the personality? And he just said nothing, nobody. Okay. So when you hold a newborn baby and you look at that baby, the baby is nothing. There's nothing in there. Like when you were a baby Bob, there was no Bobness to you as a baby. Like when you were a baby, you weren't actually Bob. And then he was like, well, no, because like I've held friends' kids before, and they do seem to be like just unique and a little bit different from each other. Like they're all they're individuals from each other. And I was like, yes, yes, that's the baby's nature. The second we come earthside, there is some essence that is just us before any of the craziness of the world has a chance to work its magic on us. We all have a nature. It's not all nurture for any of us. You have a fundamental nature. And when I was talking to Bob, I said it like, you have a nature that is 100% Bob, from Bob, for Bob, of Bob. And to bring in that other inaccuracy about personalities coming only from the outside, you use the outside plus that nature to manufacture your personality, which once again is not your true essence. It's not your true identity. It's just a tool that you use to live life. Your insides craft your outsides just as much as the other way around. And as we're going through this, I'm watching his like world dissolve. Like I could see him realizing emotions come from inside of me. I have agency in my life. It's not just happening to me. The way I look at myself, the way I have looked at myself, my partner, my relationship, my life, it's all changing. I watched it happen on his face. And so because we followed that trailhead and did this like more meandering thing, and even this episode itself might feel like a meander where it's like, where is she going to bring this back around? This is the nature of the work. Now he and I are able to undertake the work of helping him find and engage with his emotions because he knows that they're in there. They're his. They're not from someone or something else. So you just dismiss them because they're not real or they're not anything important. They're not really a part of you the way that he was before. They are totally real and they're worth engaging with. So now our work, we continue to follow the treasure map. We're going to spend our time helping him understand and identify those feelings and understand that they come from himself, that he has a himness. You have a you-ness. You have substance. You take up space. You exist apart from the slings and arrows of your life. And we get to figure out what that you-ness is, how you feel, what you want, what is possible for you. And now we can say, well, now that you know all of that, what do you want in this relationship? What do you want to do right now? So this illustrates so many different things. First of all, it illustrates, in my opinion, the value of the following the trailhead and trusting that it's going where it's meant to go. Like what comes up in session, it comes up because there's something there to be mine. The second thing is, when life compels someone to hire me, of course there's something that catalyzes you. My kid isn't, behaving well. My partner and I are fighting. My career is at a dead end. I hate my job, whatever it is, there's something in your life that compels you to hire someone like me. And when you don't just hire someone like me, but you hire me, what you really hire me for is your own personal evolution. That's what we're really doing. So you're going to hire me to transform something in your life. Like I said, it could be parenting, relationships, business, blah, 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 blah. And you know what? At some level, we would probably love it if our coach just did that whole bing, bam, boom thing and said, let's look at the facts. This. Therefore, you should definitely break up with this guy. And I think actually, especially after doing this for so long, on some level, we don't just want that. We kind of expect that. We expect that that's what our coach is going to do. I can definitely say as a coach, I come into session with clients all the time. And the answer to that, what do you want to accomplish with our session today, is at least half the time, well, I want you to tell me XYZ. Tell me if I have realistic expectations. Tell me what consequence I should use. Tell me if if my approach makes sense. Tell me if I understand this correctly. Just tell me. Give us advice and tell us what to do. That's what we want from a coach. But what if I had done that with this guy? What if I had done that with Bob and said, definitely stay or definitely go? Like all signs point to this. It's so obvious that you want to leave this guy. Okay, well, maybe I even gave him the quote unquote right advice, but his life is continuing to come from outside of him. I'm the one who made the decision for him instead of him. And you know what? It might be easier for him because he won't have to do that whole work of embodying himself that we are undertaking. But ultimately, it's going to leave him feeling, quite literally in this example, empty. Because that's what he has done in order to cope. Like the personality that he has manufactured is one of that sense of emptiness, of everything is being done to me. And that will continue. That sensation of emptiness and confusion and mystification about his own sensations and emotions will continue. And so he will continue to feel confused, not sure where to go next or who is the right partner for him. It's kind of like, wherever you go, there you are. So in this example, it's kind of like pack up your bags, have fun, take all of your crap with you from this relationship to the next relationship, or from this job into the next job, this parenting fiasco into the next parenting fiasco. If we're not doing the deeper work, we're just packing up our baggage and taking it into the next destination. And he wisely said that to me when he hired me. He said, look, I want to know if this isn't my person. I want to know that. But I also want to know how to find my person and how to not do this again if he's not my person. So ultimately, the mechanism that we use in coaching is so much more than advice. And that's, I think, why my clients tend to be really, really grateful when we do this work together, because I don't just help them in one area, because, life can't be isolated like that. They help themselves in all ways for all time. And that is a completely different ball of wax. And if I really hope Sasha's listening to this episode. I desperately want to know the body count of all of my idioms for today. But this is why my clients come back. This is why, like this guy, I worked with him a long time ago. He did a few retreaty kind of things with me. And then he came back around because he had a new thing and he knew that it was going to work. This is why my clients continue to come back. This is why people keep coming back to the retreat. This is why people really see a huge change in their lives from work like this. And it's why the retreat is such a game changer and such a no-brainer for people. Once you see that what we're doing is finding the deeper treasure map and following the deeper treasure map to the deeper treasure instead of the quick fix, you see so clearly, like, I need to slow down and notice those trailheads, follow those trailheads. And by the way, every single thing that I just told you was like a mind-blowing, like, gut punch to this guy. That's whole progression happened over several sessions. And also it's only that we were able to do it in several sessions because he had done very slow, deep work with me previously. And because his sessions were spaced out very long with lots of dialogue I use Marco Polo as a way to keep in touch with my clients in between to integrate, because the stuff that I was telling him and the stuff that he was opening up to was monumental and existential for him. So once again, oh my gosh, we need to slow down. We need to follow those trailheads. We need to have time to digest what we have just ingested. And otherwise, all of the most important little things to follow, we blow past them. So obviously something like the retreat is a no-brainer. It's literally 5 days to slow down, notice those trailheads, have your mind blown, and then go for a hike. Have your mind blown, and then just sit in silence and look at the lake. Realize something, and then just have an amazing meal and connect with people who love you while you just let it sink in. This is something that can't happen any other way. So experiencing the treasure of deep discovery is something that is this intangible gift that comes from the retreat. And the other thing I'll throw out there just as a little PS about this Bob story, I, believe it or not, have truncated it so much so that it is a linear story for you in some way, shape, or form, even though it might not have felt as linear at times. But along the way, there were other little trailheads that we found that I didn't share on this. There was a whole trailhead about realizing that he had mistyped himself and he is a different Enneagram type. And there was another whole trailhead that was about realizing that, holy cow, if stuff comes from me and it's not all nurture, what does this mean about how I've set up my dynamic with my parents, or the story I'm telling myself about my childhood? And so we had a whole meander about that in there. So much comes from this approach to just allowing the work to unfold the way that it's meant to, with all of the things that your system is ready to present to you and resolve. And then the next thing presents itself and we address it. And then the next thing presents itself and we address it. And every step along the way, we're still saying, well, how does this show up for you in your relationship? How does this impact the way you're thinking about this decision, about this relationship? It's not like it goes out the window and you tell me what you want to accomplish and we throw it in the trash. But something like the retreat allows us to hold that in this loose destination that's down the road and really just be present with that sort of evolution and unfolding and almost like the wheel of self-discovery is allowed to continue to turn for 5 days at its own pace, totally not in a rush. It's not crazy intense or too much or overwhelming at all. It's just continuing and flowing. So if that is landing with you, there's got to be something in this whole arc that we just went on together that lands with you, whether it's about slowing down, whether it's about following the trailheads, whether it's about reaching out for coaching yourself, whether it's about coming on the retreat and understanding the value of this sort of like immersive and sort of trust fall approach. Now is your time to do something with what has been brought up for you today. Reach out. Now is the time to book your spot for the retreat. This room that I'm in right now could be your special little sanctuary. And reach out to me today. Click on the link that's in the show notes. If you got this link to this recording in your email, click on the link that was in your email. Reply to that email. If you're not talking to me, it surely is not because you don't know how to connect with me. So there's another reason. There's another reason. Have a great week, everybody. I'm excited to see where these concepts lead you, what you make of this idea, and also for you, like, where do you think your emotions come from? Have you ever sat down and thought about it? Come from inside of you? Do they come from outside of you? Are they done to you? Do people make you feel them? And how does that feeling about your feelings impact everything in your life? It's a really, really cool discovery. And I felt so grateful to just be a witness to it and a little bit of a catalyst to the unfolding and to be able to share it with you today. Have a great week, everybody, and we'll talk again soon. Bye. The episode is over, but there's more waiting for you. You can grab my free workbook, Getting Kids to Listen the First Time, that walks you through the fundamental principles I teach all of my clients and applies them to this very universal parenting challenge. So if you're sick of repeating yourself all day long or just want to learn more about my style, you'll definitely want to go to bit.ly/kidswholisten. And if you're ready to work with me, let's meet. Set up a free call at bit.ly/Kaplan call, and let's create an action plan that gets you exactly where you want to go. And of course, links to all this goodness are in the show notes. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you next time.